I've got 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know that Pete is not going to be here today. Pete's traveling. I'm not sure about the mayor, Chris, or Karen, so we'll keep an eye out, but I don't want to start late. Thanks for everyone coming out today for, I think this is number 18 or something like that we've had of the Project Delivery Advisory Panel. If anyone needs a restroom, out the door to the right, you'll find a men's room and a ladies' room. If for any reason we have to evacuate this room, we would go out the door, down the steps we came in, out the front door, turn to the left, and then down at the bottom of the hill, we would meet the rest of the folks here behind the building on that parking lot you see coming up the hill. Hopefully we won't have to do that. We haven't had to yet, but you never know. So it's important to cover that point. Let's go ahead and do our introductions. If you would pull up for the folks that are watching, the agenda and the presentation are up at route29solutions.org. And if you go over to the left side of the home screen, there's an advisory panel tab. Push that and it will take you to the April 2nd meeting. So for anyone watching, welcome, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to peek in on us. Chip, why don't you get started with the introductions?
Chip Orles with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission and the Regional MPO.
Morgan Butler with the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Mark Graham with Albemarle County.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
I made roll call. Karen Weiner, Charlottesville Fashion Square.
Henry Weinschenk representing Express Car Wash.
All right. Karen, welcome. Technical team?
Dave Covington with VDOT located in Charlottesville Residency.
Hal Jones with VDOT and Charlottesville Residency.
And John Lynch with VDOT from Culpeper District.
Linda Collop, IT support.
Debbie Messina, Phillips Chiquette Company.
John Martin with the Southeastern Institute of Research.
Allison DeTom, CTV.
Joel DiMenzio, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
And we have a representative here from Lane Corman as well as from Fielder's Choice.
Chris Reed, representing Lane Corman. Don Cantor, President of Fielder's Choice Enterprises.
Thank you very much, folks. I want to ask your opinion on one thing very quickly. It occurred to me that we've doing our part to nail down a lot of good trees with paper. Would anyone object if I printed the future presentations for your books on both sides of the page? I presume not, but I want to ask. And I should have thought of that 18 meetings ago, but we'll start that from here going forward, and I really appreciate that. Item 2 on our agenda, at our last meeting, March 19th meeting, we had 31 viewers, the unique viewers on live streaming. That's down from, all the numbers are down from our February meeting. Streams 118 as opposed to 128, average streams 32. Doesn't surprise me that went down a little bit, but there's still 30, round numbers, 40 people peeking in, which is pretty good. The important thing is to provide the opportunity for people to watch, and as you know, VDOT is doing that more and more on all of their projects now. Thank you, Linda. Not too much activity. We had one email comment since our last meeting. We didn't have any new comments on the provide input tab of route29solutions.org itself. There's a total of 272, and it's been at that number for a while. Good afternoon, Mayor. It's good to see you. The comment was a darn good one. It said, why are there 2 billboards up in Madison and Culpeper County talking about the work that's going on down south in Charlottesville? And the truth of the matter is, I understand it, at least one of those billboards was just up by mistake and has been down. But VDOT felt it was important to keep at least one up because there are folks from the north part of town who do generally travel northbound that need to be aware that construction is underway back south on Route 29. I actually think both of those billboards were in Culpeper County. That's neither here nor there. But one of them has been taken down and will be placed at another location around here. But one of them is going to remain up, and that's a decision VDOT's made, and we'll move on from that. The panel feedback portion of our last meeting, and we did deliver a full-size set of plans to Henry for the 30% RIO GSI, and as indicated, if anybody would like a full set of plans you can put your hands on going forward, you just need to let me know and we'll take care of that. I'm going to take special care to do the best job I can of pointing out any changes that occur from the conceptual drawings to the 30% and from the 30% to the 60% drawings, and I took that discussion to heart that we had 2 weeks ago, and I will do the best I can to be sure I cover all of the points. I think Mark said, gee, maybe it'd be a good idea for when the 60% plans for RIO come in for us to have a little time with VDOT, for VDOT to mention the key features on those 60% plans when they come in, and we'll see that schedule in a bit, which is the last. I talked about taking out the RFP schedule since we completed that procurement process, and I actually think it was Mark that suggested again, or we all talked about, well, let's replace that schedule with a design plan submission schedule, which we'll see on agenda item 5. Any questions there?
Quickly, on the billboard that was as you were headed north, are there billboards as you're headed south?
I think the answer is yes. I just honestly don't know where all of them are.
That way in a while.
I just don't know where they all are.
My current understanding is that the folks that are securing those locations are trying to find billboards heading south. There are far fewer southbound than there are northbound. And
So I just
they're
don't see.
working on that.
And they say construction has started, I think is what they say.
Southbound,
Yeah.
South of 64.
So also trying to see on there.
They're already in place.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. And that's part of the communications plan going forward, which will only ramp up more as more projects come under construction.
Will VDOT actually put up the billboards? Because my understanding from past advertising and marketing inquiries, there really are no billboards on 29 north of the airport. And that's probably why those are placed that far north.
You mean would VDOT put up new billboard?
Right.
No,
There are none
no.
available, I think, to even place advertising.
Not even temporary?
And that-
John, do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
My firm's involved with this, and it was in fact very difficult to find available billboards. And so since this is a market-wide campaign, it clearly makes sense to catch people as they're entering the area and headed to the construction, but at the time, not being able to find placements and wanting to kick the campaign off, we said, we should just probably take what we can get, just to start, and then we can be more targeted as we go when something opens up, so the billboard people know that we want something.
Right, there's not much inventory
Right.
south of
Right.
what we need, yeah.
The good news is when I get to have a few minutes today to share with you some research that we've done, there is a surprisingly high level of awareness of what's happening. And so we're pleased about that.
And the billboards are part of the
Part of it.
communications campaign that will go on. Anything else? Okay. We're at the open discussion period where you can ask any questions or any items for next week. Brad?
No, I'm good.
Karen? Henry?
I have a little bit from having studied the blueprints a little bit more. I realized that in phase one, night work, at one point there'll be a single lane after 9 o'clock between the IHOP and Hess. And my question is, has anybody collected data which normally is not collected? Normally you collect data of hourly traffic flow during 8 to 8 hours and at night. And will that one lane be okay for whatever traffic flow there is between 9 and 6
a.m.?
Yeah. Because that, I don't know the answer. I know potential situation.
Dave, do we have any information there?
We have not performed nighttime counts.
Yeah.
The volumes on 29 after 9 p.m. are extremely low.
Yeah.
We've been validating that, for instance, down at the 29-250 interchange project where there's been night work going on. There are provisions in the contract that if it's problematic, if we're starting to see backups or a problem as a result of that, then we can certainly require the design builder to have more lanes open. The other thing to consider is that Merkmar really acts as a relief valve. It's not a true detour in the sense that we're going to close a road and detour, but we can certainly make drivers aware that that alternative route is available to alleviate any congestion at nighttime along Route 29 if that arises.
Dave, did I hear you say that we would collect some nighttime counts? Or,
No,
or just that we don't have not?
We have not collected nighttime
Okay.
counts.
Okay. Okay.
Philip, I would add that we have had that operation with the adaptive signals down to one lane during those hours also. We have not had problems with it for that operation.
So we've had it down to one. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that was my
Thank you.
question. Somebody had checked
Yeah.
into it.
Thank you. Thanks, Joel. That's
That
good.
was it
Okay.
low enough to not have to worry about it?
Okay.
And then I have a few more little questions, just to show that I did my homework.
I would have been woefully disappointed.
On phase three, I get a little bit lost because I don't know what's day work and what's night work in phase three, or is it all day work?
Phase 3 after the 103-day
Exactly.
period.
That's not very clear to me because at one point I noticed that we again go back to a single lane between Hardee's and Hess. And if it's night, then obviously the question, if the other question is answered, then this one is answered.
Well, I want to make sure I answer this correctly. Regardless of the phase, lane closures are 9 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Okay, so that takes care of that.
Yes.
And then finally, I see lots of barrels. I see some temporary lanes down to 10 feet. And my question is there any provision for street lighting? Maybe the permanent lighting or maybe temporary lighting? Because those things can get pretty scary when you drive at night and you have barrels all over, and there may be an elegant way to solve the problem by assuming that we're going to have permanent street lighting on this intersection, which I don't know yet.
Okay.
If it is, can it be installed early enough so that you have decent street lighting? Because that's one of the problems in general in Almar County, that as shopping centers have developed, the parking lots have a very high level of lighting and foot candle, but the roadways have not. And because of the contrast, you have difficulty sometimes seeing the lanes making the turn from 29 into Rio, because your eye is adjusting for the lighting on the lots and you don't have lighting on the road.
Dave?
It's an interesting suggestion. I think it would be rather difficult to install lighting during construction. The permanent condition lighting is located on the retaining wall structures to light the depressed lanes, and then there is pedestrian level lighting at the intersection as proposed. Installing anything that would be in the way during construction might be problematic.
But the contractor's not going to be working in the dark.
Oh, no.
No.
You mean the light trees, the temporary light?
Yeah.
There will be a lot of light
Right.
out there, temporary lights that the design builder will be using to length their work area.
Have you seen those?
He needs it, but will there be enough spill onto the lanes?
If I hear right, like some of the barrel areas where you're approaching kind of the active work zone is
Right.
the question of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us talk about that a little bit more.
It's a
I
challenge.
think the answer is going to be, yes, it will be well lit. But let us talk about that and be sure and talk with the contractor.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah.
Can be
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, that's an
well,
interesting, sure, that's an interesting
something to
point.
consider, that's all.
One other
Okay.
thing to consider, and this isn't an answer, but a lot of times those lights can be a distraction to drivers in addition to what's already there. I'm not saying they are, but they can be.
They can be, and that's why,
Well-
again, I'm asking, will they also not only put lighting on the work area, but will they also try to put
Right.
some lighting on the drive area?
Well, here's what we'll do for sure is we'll come back and tell you what the plan is. Okay.
I'm just
Yeah,
bringing
that's a good
out
point.
the point. I'm not
Yeah.
debating this one.
No, good, very
I
good.
debated other ones.
We'll dig up a few more.
Yeah, okay, I'll come.
No. You good? Thank you. Thank you. Chip? Morgan? Mayor? Okay. Thank you very much. Next slide. This is the new item 5, and I laid it out a bit differently. You actually saw a chart like this many meetings ago. This one now has dates in it, and I laid it out this way so we could kind of get an idea of what's coming in months when there are more than one. And I also wanted to lay out the schedule versus the actual. I think Henry said we like seeing the check marks when we beat a date. So let's just take Rio for example. The 30% was scheduled to come in on April the 17th, but the contractor actually got it in on March the 6th. Coming down to Route 29 widening, the 30% were scheduled for April the 8th, but they came in March the 31st. I think we're going to continue to see them come in early. I hope we continue to see them come in early, and we're just going to need to react to that. We talked about this months ago, that when they come in, Dave is, well, I don't know if Dave's personally doing it, but VDOT is stripping the plans out into some PDFs so that we can turn them around hopefully within a day, get them up on the website and make us aware of that. So the 60%, again, we'll just stick with Rio, 60% plans are scheduled to come in June the 24th. At some point, Dave is going to have an idea that, hey, we might be getting 60% plans in the next couple of days. When he has that idea, I'll alert you, and then as soon as they do come in, we will go through our drill again. But that's how the schedule lays out for where we are now. So we have these two in Berkmar. Everybody's looking at and saying, well, gee, you left off the 30% plan, which is exactly the question I asked Dave. And on Berkmar, our first plan submission will actually be the 60% plans because of the project itself. We just, I think, feel that there's not the necessity to go through the 30% stage. That doesn't mean we're going to have less opportunity for input or review, or it's going to all be done and we won't know what's going on. There just won't be a 30% submission. And I'm betting that the final plans on Berkmar don't come in on New Year's Eve, but you never know. That is the schedule. So we did, in all seriousness, we took a hard look at the schedule that Lane Corman has prepared, and we got it down into months, and then drilled into the schedule a little further, and actually see the date, which I like, seeing the date that the schedule is, and we'll sharing that with everyone, and this is what we'll use to stay on top of our plan submissions.
Bill, one thing I'd
Yes.
like to point out about Burkmore, because the project is on new alignment, it doesn't have the traffic impacts that the other two do. We do feel that the technical proposal plans were at about a 30% level. So why have another submittal just to have a submittal? So that's effectively the 30%.
If you recall, just a couple of weeks ago, we said that the 30% plans for Rio came in a day or 2 days after notice to proceed. So obviously a lot of work was done at the contractor's own risk early on. You know, Dave, somewhere in here though, I think it would do us good to have a Burkmar discussion. We don't need the 30% plans, but we don't need to wait till September to have a presentation on Burkmar either. Yes, sir.
If the submittals were essentially the 30%, can we see the submittals?
Yeah, they're up now on the website, but
It was part of the technical proposal.
yeah, they're part of the technical proposal, but can we clip that out? Sure. Yeah, that's good,
So
a good logical suggestion. Yeah.
maybe we see something
Yeah.
in it that
Yeah.
may be
Yeah.
worthwhile.
I think the point, let's do that, and then let's also think sometime here in the summer, have a little preliminary discussion on Burkmar.
It's
Okay.
easier if we have seen some plans, even if they were the submittals.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree at all. Yeah. That's a good point. Thank you. Dave, you want to give us, we have Don Cantoris here from Fielders, but go ahead and give your update. Oh, I want to mention something on Route 29, 250 to Neal. I saw the question that somebody asked. Someone tweeted out something that Neil picked up on, said, what happened to only doing work on 29, 250 after hours? We were never only going to do work after hours. It's the lane closures. No lane closures between 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., but there's still work going on during the day, just no lane closures. So I couldn't quite tell by that picture, Neil. I saw some barrels and barriers out there that folks are working behind, but I don't believe there's any lane closures. There's no lane closures 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. But there will be work going on during the day. So I wanted to address that.
It looks like traffic stopped out right there now. I came through there just a minute
Yeah,
ago.
I don't.
I don't know if they actually have a lane closed, but they.
Well,
There are lane closures allowed on 250 bypass, but not 29.
but not 29.
Correct.
So there are lane closures allowed on, what's allowed?
Daytime lane closure is allowed on the 250 bypass.
Okay.
Daytime lane closure, yes.
Right now, let's go through.
What's that?
One lane is closed right now.
Yeah, as we.
Yeah.
Today, it's down to one lane, actually. But,
Well, the
Okay.
question is that does that then produce backups on 29? That's the question.
Well, if that's what the contract allows, I just want to be sure we're saying what the contract allows. So, I mean, as we've said before, there will be disruptions during construction. That's not going to change. But, so, lane closures are allowed by the contract on 250 bypass. On 29, for the 29 250 project, the only lane closures are 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., but work is not restricted
Correct.
tonight.
Correct.
Okay. Agenda item 6.
Starting with the 29-250 interchange project, and I've kind of reorganized the way that I do this because I think it's helpful to know what has happened this week, what's gone on, what's going to be happening next week, give us a little look ahead, what to expect. Work this week on 29-250 interchange included pipe installation for the stormwater management basin in the southwest quadrant of the intersection, removal of guardrail along the ramp in the Route 250 westbound, that was completed, and clearing and grubbing behind the barrier wall along the ramp and Route 250 westbound, which is what you saw occurring today as you were driving here, if you drove through that area. Work next week will include construction of the retaining wall along the ramp. That's a long duration item, so they need to get started on that as quickly as possible. So that's the work that's they're preparing for now. Installation of additional construction signs along Route 29. Next week they will be restriping the lanes along 29 to push them out to the outside on that usable shoulder that's there now. And then they will also adjust the signal heads, move some of the signal heads outward so they line up with the lanes and begin medium work along Route 29. Much of that work will occur during the daytime, but there will be the same number of lanes that are out there now open. They'll just push them out a little bit to create a buffer space between the travel lane and the work. Work beyond next week includes drainage installation and widening of the Route 29 median. There's some other noteworthy information, just in case you happen to be out driving at night and see this work. There is bridge deck inspection and repair. That's a maintenance project that will be going on at the Route 250 bypass and Ivy Road interchange. This is not associated with the 29-250 project. That work will begin April 14th, and there will be nighttime lane closures and detour. The work is limited to between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. And again, that's a maintenance operation that isn't directly tied to the 29-250 interchange project. Adaptive signals, this week there were borings and junction box installation at Polo Grounds Road. There was a signal cabinet change out at Hilton Heights and the entrance to Lowe's, and installation of the loop detectors in the pavement at Airport Road. Work coming up next week is installation of left turn lane loop detectors at Ranchlands and Fashion Square Drive, installation of loop detectors at Timberwood, and signal improvements at the Woodbrook intersection at Route 29, which includes installation of cameras and telecommunications. The Rio GSI project.
Hey, Dave, just 1 minute. I know we had a lot of conversation with Karen about this, but there were some issues with the traffic signal at Fashion Square 2 weeks ago, and I just want to let everybody else know that those issues weren't related to the adaptive signal work, but created some issues for you, and I think we've got that, or I guess, Joel, whether you or that's Northwest VDOT, has that fixed now. There was a cable.
There was a cable splice on the road that
So that's repaired?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Hopefully we have no more problems with that signal.
Hopefully.
I apologize for any inconvenience on that. Okay, work that occurred this week on the Rio Grade Separated Intersection project. They performed some supplemental surveying. That work was outside of the roadway, no impacts to traffic there. Agency field reviews, this is getting the Army Corps of Engineers and VDOT's environmental staff together to walk the project site and make sure everybody still agrees with all of the findings that occurred in the past. Utility relocation design and coordination, so that's something that the design builder is doing kind of on their own right now, continuing that relocation design. And this evening we will begin some drainage structure cleanouts. This is work that VDOT contractors are doing to clean out some of the drainage structures out there that have sediment buildup, so that the design builder can perform inspections on those to make sure that they're structurally and hydraulically adequate to remain in service. Next week, we'll complete the drainage structure cleanouts. That's all happening at night when there needs to be a lane closure. And then next week, no additional field work is anticipated beyond that. So they've done their field investigation. Now they're back in the office doing design. Route 29 widening this week, they're performing utility test holes within and outside of the roadway. So when they're inside the roadway, they're doing nighttime lane closures. They're performing geotechnical drilling. Most of that is occurring outside of the roadway. There is some of that occurring during the daytime. And obviously we had a 30% plan submittal on the 31st of Tuesday. And drainage structure cleanouts along the Route 29 widening project will start tonight as well. Work next week is VDOT will complete the review of the 30% plan submittal. We will have a comment resolution meeting with the design builder to come up with resolution to any comments that we have outstanding. And again, similar to Rio, we will complete the drainage structure cleanouts next week. For Berkmar Extended, work this week included geotechnical drilling outside of the roadway. Almost all of that work is outside of the roadway. It doesn't impact travel lanes. And agency field review, again, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and VDOT's environmental staff, reviewing the field conditions with the design builder. And work next week will also continue geotechnical drilling outside of the roadway.
Dave, I've asked the panel to try to get comments together for you by close of business Tuesday. Does that work on 29 widening? I do want to give anyone the opportunity that wants to see either a half-size set or a full-size set to let me know. I mean, if you know today, you can let me know. If you want to think about it a day or two. And what we did last week was actually, I said mail, but mailing, as Dave reminded me, mailing these things is a big chunk of public money. So all of you all are here. If you want a set, we can have them delivered to you in your case. If Rich would want a set, we could do that. Well, I don't know that Rich was looking for a set on Route 29 widening, but maybe. So just let us know.
I'll let you know after I look at the...
Yeah, just let me know. Just call or send a note or whatever.
You go ahead and put me down. I need a half-size set for the 29 wide.
Half-size set.
Yeah, that'd be
11 by 17.
that's perfect.
Put me down for one. And I'll circle back to you guys and check, just to be sure. Okay. Let's go ahead, and I just wanted to cover a couple of things on item 7, and this is really background a little bit on 250-29, and then let Don introduce himself and maybe just talk a little bit about his team. Yes, sir.
Chris has some update on Hillsdale.
Oh, Hillsdale, yes.
Sorry for being late.
Yes, no, my bad. Hillsdale, yes. I know you guys just had a meeting.
Right. Brief update from our project engineer on that. There was a meeting in the past week between VDOT and the city that was very productive, information sharing. So that has occurred. The environmental documentation is under review by the city. Utility field work investigation continues. They're on their 3rd field visit to identify conflicts there, so that's continuing. In the bridge, there's a bridge as part of the city piece that is apparently under review by VDOT, or at least a report about what the bridge could and should look like.
The stage 1 report.
Is under review.
Okay.
And that's the general overview. We're still in the right-of-way phase, and,
right.
And there are 22 property owners. There have been no conversations or offers about right-of-way yet, but I think that's a decision that's pending with VDOT as to the go-ahead on some of those conversations.
Okay. Anything for Chris on Hillsdale? Mayor, thank you for not letting me skip. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate that very much. And thanks for your help on getting everybody together earlier this week. I think that was very good. The 250-29 contractor got mobilized on the 16th, and we had some snow. It didn't snow. It snowed. It didn't snow. March 2nd started erosion and control, and actually field construction, clearing and grubbing got started off on March the 4th. Stormwater modifications got started off the next week, March 12th. Coming up, April the 15th is when it's scheduled to start gas line relocation. June the 1st, start construction of the MSE wall, and Don or Dave will tell you a little bit more about that, and the sound wall. And if you'll remember, the PDAP had got their hands in the sound wall in terms of the aesthetic treatment that's going to be placed on the sound wall, as opposed to the little more starker treatment that was planned initially. And big thing, May 21st, 2016, construction complete, and they're out of the way a couple of days before Wayne Corman moves in, the 103-day period on the Rio GSI itself. Don, you just want to stand up and introduce yourself and let these folks get your face emblazoned in their brain in case they have an issue on the Best Buy.
Dealer's choice. I'm not the boots on the ground, of course, the guys on the boots on the ground. The job has started off well. It's tracking along as expected. The biggest thing is the construction of the MSE wall, and it's actually 2 phases. One, has a huge...
Why don't you just tell them what that is a little? Just
it's a wall that's going to parallel the ramp and parallel 29 to add the extra ramp because there's no room there. But it's 2 things. We have to put a support system in before we build the wall. That's a long duration activity before the wall starts.
It's a retaining wall.
The retaining wall. Yeah, we actually have to put a support system in before we put the retaining wall in.
Why is it called MSE?
Excuse me?
Why is it called MSE? What does that stand for?
mechanically stabilized earth, mechanically stabilized earthen wall. Is that right?
It uses the weight of the earth to hold back the wall. There's tiebacks that go back from the wall into the fill. So it's a mechanical stabilization.
So you fool the angle of repose on the earth, essentially?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's supposed to have Gander Mountain Wall.
To keep it tilting over. It's a pretty good structural piece of engineering.
Okay. Yeah.
And then of course the sound wall will follow. But that is the job. I mean, the other parts of the job are no different than any other intersection improvement that you would do. It's the MSE wall and sound wall, and crash walls. That's going to be a lead. Everything hinges around that activity. And that activity will go through the winter, which is the biggest risk on the project because you don't know what you're going to get. But we're not going to be, it's not going to be as sensitive as putting down surface asphalt. We'll be better off there.
And Don, we'll have you or whoever is appropriate come in from time to time, keep us updated. Dave will be doing a regular bi-weekly update like you did.
Just ask, we'll be here.
Yeah.
Next week will be another night work week. We're not going to be working. It'll be, if it's night work, day work, it'd be small crew, day work, large crew, night work. But next week is another night work crew. We worked a couple. But predominantly the work's going to be during the day behind barrier. Especially when the wall starts, because that's all materials related and you can't ship 15,000 tons of stone from backfill during the night. Nobody's going to like that anyway. So.
Any questions for Don?
Just kind of an observation, because I've gone through it a couple of times. I go through it daily, but in the evening going through a couple of times. It seems like it's actually safer when you have the lane restrictions than when we don't, because the traffic, you're like at the evenings, early evenings of 5, 6 o'clock, traffic doesn't seem to be slowing down enough for the merge. And I don't know if there's anything, if VDOT's observed this or if there's anyone's looked at that, but it's such a short merge for the 29 ramp coming onto the bypass there that I'm a little nervous about that. If we can slow the traffic down any there.
Yeah, this is an area I'd like to just echo what Donna said. It has gotten off to a good start, and we've had a good partnering relationship so far with Fielder's Choice. And being flexible is probably one of the keys to success here. Mm-hmm. And we've observed some issues, and we've made some changes. We're continuing to do that. Fielder's Choice has been great about working with us on that front. But part of the reason that lane is closed on 250 is to provide that area where people can merge in during heavy traffic hours. We're working on some additional signing to make people aware that where there was a merge lane before, it doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately, it's a necessity of the work that's going on out there. I feel confident that we're going to continue to work together to sign it the best that we can to make people aware. We noticed more issues when it first happened. People are getting used to it now. They know to yield at that location instead of just pulling straight out. So,
I appreciate what you're saying. I tend to agree because I think some of this is driver behavior. There's a lot of drivers who are used to going 45 miles an hour through there, and it's just really not safe at that speed now with what's going on there, and trying to slow them down a little.
Yes, and I think it's working. We've got a lot of signs out there. We've got some advanced message boards that make people aware that they need to pay attention. They need to merge over. They need to let people merge in.
Yep.
We'll continue to keep an eye on that.
Just to follow up, because that's
Yes.
a very, very good question. I know this was in the VDOT project that they recently opened McIntyre 250, the merge lane from McIntyre onto eastbound 250. It's so short. I mean, it's dangerous right now. So not being, and that wasn't y'all's project, but not being a transportation person, is there any type of like transportation industry standard for what the length of a merge lane is for merging onto such a road, or does it just vary by project?
Well, it does vary by project and condition and speed limit and all these different.
It's kind of a yes and a yes to the answer.
Yeah.
There is a standard for determining the length of a merge lane, but it does vary.
Yeah, and my understanding, and I don't have the intimate knowledge
What that one
of
is.
development of that project, they did an analysis. It's not a true reeve condition, but a similar analysis to determine the length of that merge condition. It was an operational analysis, so it determines like the speed of vehicles and how many gaps there will be for people to be able to merge in. And which, maybe I misunderstood you, which ramp?
Karen's the one between Park Street and McIntyre?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where you come
So
up
if you're
the hill
heading
and then you're
eastbound,
there.
yeah, I see
Yeah.
it every day.
Yeah.
So it's between McIntyre going east to Park Street. It's the Park Street exit and the McIntyre entrance ramps that are combined into one lane. And the merging is hectic. No actions occurred. Maybe when the paving gets leveled out, it'll be a little bit better, but it's pretty tough. So I can see the concern. You have to be looking pretty hard to make sure. People still don't know how to slow down when you're exiting and speed up when you're entering.
That's actually the way the 250, 29 bypass, when it goes on the Knox Road, you'll lose a lane at Knox Road, and you'll have to get over one lane and then one lane through lane. So we have to the same way with more volumes.
Right.
Not the same distance, too.
The same issue, Karen, it's just from Park Street to McIntyre westbound on the other side.
It's a little bit longer,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Joel tells me that you guys are taking a little look at that now. So we'll ask them to come back and tell us what their look-see reveal. Is that okay?
That area, it's actually not a standard, but it's a level of service, I believe, dependent upon the length. So
Mhm.
the engineer that did the plan, we asked them to go back and look at that, and then I think they're working with the city to get that.
Okay.
One interesting thing the city may want to look at, there's a lot of pedestrian access that changes when this project's finished. Pedestrian access will be right in front of Best Buy. Before you get to the bridge, it crosses over, pedestrian access is going to be in the median. Goes down the median, then it goes back down across the 29 South and disappears. It's a pedestrian access to nowhere. So I suspect people are going to question that when we're finished, like, why is this pedestrian access going nowhere? So you might want to look at that before
Okay.
we're finished.
Who says contractors aren't helpful? No, thanks,
Probably
Tom.
didn't realize it until we started
Yeah.
getting into the distant grits of the job.
Okay.
And,
All right.
It's just a sidewalk that goes to nowhere.
Okay, okay,
But it's on the other side of 29.
right.
The other side by Vodo, you got.
Okay.
Some access, but on the
All right.
other side, you don't. You got sidewalks that just dead end.
Okay, okay. Don, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. John, you want to go ahead while you're getting ready? We have two John Martins in the room today. I won't point out the other one.
I see.
But,
I can tell another Mark.
if you want to go ahead and get, John is the CEO of Southeastern Institute of Research. And when we first started talking about place naming, Chip said, gee, what do we know? Why don't we get somebody that is kind of in this business? And I think I mentioned to you at that meeting that VDOT has had contracts in place with SIR for quite a few. I don't know how many years. I know SIR was working for VDOT when I spent some time at VDOT. So we were able to ask them. Well, SIR also on larger projects, they do some research for VDOT just about information. How are people getting their information? Not do you like the project or don't you like the project. So John's not doing that type of research. But how do you get your information? Is the information effective? What would you like to see going forward? And they do that early to establish kind of a baseline and then track it through a few elements of a project to help VDOT determine where you need to spend money and how to spend it most effectively in terms of communications. All of that, I say, by way of knowing that John was going to kick off a survey and some research on 29, we piggybacked some questions and asked John to do some research about the place naming issue, which he was able to do, and will report to you today, just show you the results of the presentation. And I asked John to come and do this because, first of all, it's their research, and I think that it's important for John to independently report the results of his research rather than to kind of bunch it into our normal presentation, because it is important that it's John's research isn't trying to prove a point. It's just trying to say, here's what we found out. And I did ask him to share the survey instrument with us as well, so we would know what the deal is. So I'm going to go over here and sit down and be Pete for a minute.
Great.
Listen to John.
Okay.
John, thank you.
Well, thank you. And as I go through this material, some of it's going to look like eye charts. So please ask me any questions as we go. And if we get through this in pretty short order, Philip also asked me to share some of the national research we're doing on placemaking. And so I'd be delighted to do that. That's SIR's research. But this is VDOT's research. And we've been working for VDOT for 2 decades plus and doing a lot of research to support projects all across the Commonwealth, big, large construction projects. And so we use the same sort of methodology that we deploy, whether it's a Springfield interchange or putting in new HOV lanes in Hampton Roads or doing that bridge rehabilitation project in Richmond and now here Route 29. So we're calling this a benchmark study because we expect to come back sometime over the course of the next 18 months to make sure that we're making gains. So you've got to always start a research presentation with methodology. And this was a relatively small study considering the kind of work that we do, an 8-minute telephone survey. We really just wanted to get in and out and get a benchmark. And then Philip came up with the other idea, why don't we ask some place-making questions on naming? And so we just did a few questions there, and I'm going to share those findings with you. The field work was March the 3rd through March the 10th. This was a telephone survey, 400 surveys completed. So 400. The important part of the study was really the catchment area. Where are we going to survey people? And we really wanted to get Route 29 travelers. So we wanted folks who had traveled through the Route 29 Solutions Improvement Corridor within the past 12 months. People that were actively traveling through that corridor. And we used a software tool that we use on a lot of projects called on-the-map software, which really allows you to define a geographic feeder area based on where people originate from. And so looking at the Route 29 corridor, this was roughly the catchment area that we included and called people randomly in those households. So we went outside the core corridor. We wanted to make sure we caught people coming in from the north and south. And so a random survey in that area. We didn't have, with just 400 people, you can't segment a lot of different ways. You can look at it male, female, but you can also look at it in terms of the sort of use of this corridor. So we have light users, a third of the sample, medium users, about 20%, and then half the sample were what we're calling heavy users, more than 3 days a week. And we'll show a couple of charts that use that segmentation scheme. Okay, so the research objectives here were twofold. First and foremost, we have a model that we always follow, and everyone in the communications business follows this model. We didn't invent it. We certainly follow it because it's just stood the test of time. If you want somebody to do behaviors like visit the website for more information, be safe in traveling through the corridor, check travel times and routes, you got to get them to understand and try it. Go to that website. In order to do that, they got to be familiar that there is a website, and they got to be aware of it. So it's a classic model, and we measure every time we go into the market. We try to figure out where are people in this model. We obviously want to get more people here. Be safe. Look on the website before you travel. Think about it before you go. So this study was really designed primarily to handle this first objective. Where are we in this model, and establish that benchmark reading. The second research objective was this idea of gaining initial feedback on potential naming and placemaking efforts for Rio Road intersection. I'm going to say this once now, and I'm going to say it in the end. There's only about 4 or 5 questions on this topic. So this was not a placemaking naming study. And so everything I'm going to say here should not direct you to do exactly what it says here, right? It should just be an indication that maybe there's something going on here. Maybe we should explore this a little more. I'm going to say that again at the end, because one study does not make a whole strategy. But we did test our way into a little bit of this as the second objective. All right, so I'm going to share real fast where we are, the benchmark findings on the advertising campaign. I'm going to start here is the billboard that we talked about earlier in the meeting, and just make an announcement: construction has begun. Because in billboards you only got 8 words, you got to say it pretty fast. And then here are the print ads. This is the first one, just saying construction starts. And VDOT tries to use a very simple look, not trying to sell anything. And here are the facts: construction starting. And then we have a cable TV spot. How many of you have seen the TV spot running in the market? That's pretty good, about half. Okay? Well, here it is. Oops, I'm going to plug it in. I'm sorry, I didn't plug the sound in because that's important. Technology.
Hey, Linda, while he's doing that, this presentation is not on the web yet, so for people watching, let's keep them focused on the screen. If you could. As best as you can. Let's see if this works.
VDOT wants travelers around Charlottesville to know construction has begun to improve the interchange of Route 29 South and Route 250 Bypass West. Most work affecting travel is being done at night. Learn more at route29solutions.org.
Pretty simple. And the whole campaign really is designed to drive people to the website. So the website is a prominent feature visually. One of the reasons that we do this sort of benchmark study, and for most construction projects that VDOT does, is because we want to make sure that people got the information. We want to make sure that they are going to the website. We want to make sure that they understand what we're trying to help make the corridor safe in the kind of the timing of the most inconvenient construction periods. We also want to make sure that we're spending taxpayer dollars wisely. So you lay out a whole campaign for something like this, but once the market gets saturated and you realize that people, the majority, actually understand what's going on and they know about the website and they've been there, then you can back off the advertising. And so that's what we plan to do. Right now there's a whole schedule in place, but is that last campaign needed? And that's just a question that we'll determine when we go back in the market in the middle of this effort. All right, here are the findings. We do it sort of like Dave Letterman, number 1, number 2, and they're not in order of importance, but they certainly take you through how we look at communications campaigns and creating benchmarks. 9 out of 10 Route 29 travelers are aware of the Route 29 corridor improvement projects. This is a very high score. And back to our model, we're right here at the top of this model. So 9 out of 10 said, yes, I'm aware of that corridor improvement projects that are going on. Yes,
John, I presume that that's the survey.
literally the question on the survey.
Literally the question.
And you will 8-minute survey, and all the questions for every slide are at the bottom. So have you ever heard, seen, or read anything about plans to improve this area of the Route 29 corridor between Route 250 and Airport Road? That was the question. 9 out of 10. Number 2, just 2 in 5 Route 29 travelers say they're familiar with Route 29 corridor improvements. The heavy Route 29 users are a little more familiar, that they've been on the road more. And so here's this familiarity going down this chart. And we talk about the top 2 box scores in research. So you'll hear me give a score. It really is referring back to on a 1 to 5 scale. When we get to familiarity, we talk about the 4s and the 5s. And on other 1 to 5 scales, I'll say top 2 box score. That's what it means. We're combining the 4s and 5s. So here, 51% are familiar. Now we do this math because we know that not everybody was aware of the project. So 100% of the travelers, 90% are aware of it, 51% are familiar. That leads you to 46% of all the travelers say they're familiar. And so you're going to see this sort of scheme play out. We just wanted to show you how we calculate these things. And I mentioned the heavy users a little more aware and a little more familiar. And that makes sense. So the implication here is that our campaign, the communications campaign, at this point needs to really spend more time on building familiarity of the construction project. Where, what, and when construction activities are taking place, and how travelers can be safe, and how they can think about avoiding any of the congestion-related impact from the construction. So our campaign really needs to be those specifics. It's not, hey, there's construction going on. We need to now be more and more specific. Number 3, to date, just over half of all Route 29 travelers are aware of VDOT's public information outreach. Have you ever heard, seen, or read the phrase Route 29 solutions? 57% of the respondents said yes. Have you ever heard, seen, or read any information from VDOT about plans to improve the area of Route 29 corridor? 60%, yes. So if you do that math again, it gets to just over half of Route 29 travelers are aware of VDOT's outreach efforts. Just over half. To date, 1 in 10 of all Route 29 travelers have visited the project website. And here we asked, are you aware of the project website? 46%. And then of those who were aware, have you ever visited the website? 42%. So if you do that long string of math now, all travelers, those aware of the project, aware of information campaign, aware of the website, use the website, it gets to about 11%. That might sound small, but it's actually pretty good to start off at this point to have 10% of the travelers already gone to the website. So the implication is the campaign has really just gotten started. It's just been running for about 4 weeks. We got to keep it going, build that familiarity, get that score up, and get even more people to the website. That's the goal of the campaign out. And to do so being specific, providing those specifics, and get more by going to the website. Number 5, almost half of those aware of Route 29 Improvement Project feel they've received a sufficient amount of information. This is a question that we've been asking for 20 years. We ask it on all the projects. We want to understand, from the citizen's perspective, do they have enough information? We've asked other questions and other VDOT research. Do you want information about projects? Overwhelmingly, people say, absolutely. I want to know about projects that affect me. So then how do we know if they've gotten enough information? This question. It goes from, I've gotten more than I need, to all that I need, most of what I need, some of what I need, less than what I need, somewhat less than what I need, very little, nothing. And we always give that box, don't know, not sure. But this is the way it looks, and combining, VDOT is happy when someone says, I've gotten most of what I need, Sometimes it's impossible to get everybody to say, oh, I've gotten so much, I don't need any more. So when we look at this, we try to focus here on those top 3 boxes and then compare the score on this project to other projects. And I'm going to do it for you. So looking at looking at those top 2 boxes at 48%, you've got to factor in that's a subsegment of all travelers. 90% are aware of the corridor improvement projects. 48% say they've got enough information. So that gets you to 43%. So 43% are saying, yep, I'm pretty good, I'm pretty good. So let's look at this across other surveys that we've had the opportunity to do for VDOT. 17% I-66 corridor improvements. Now this project is just getting started. It's about in the same state as the Route 29 project. Just getting figured out, probably actually just a little bit behind, right? A little bit behind. Trying to put the contract together now. 38% I-66 inside the Beltway. People said that they've gotten what they needed. Dulles Metro Rail, 31%, building out the Dulles Metro Rail and all the construction that took place then. Hampton Roads, I-64, 34%. Overall, just asking people in general across the state, not related to any one project, but projects in general, 41%. Springfield Interchange, 56%, after a multi-million-dollar campaign and 8 years of construction. And we said, wow, we got it over 50%. That was the highest score we had seen. And then the Ridges of Richmond, the restoration project that just ended, that actually set the mark, 59%. And VDOT won some communication awards about that whole effort, keeping people informed. So here's the lowest, which is predictable and something that's just getting started, the I-66 corridor. Here's the highest, the Bridges of Richmond, the bridge restoration project. And so here we are at 43%. So the big insight is, wow, people really know about this, that a good job has gone on to educate people in Charlottesville about Route 29. And I think what also helped is it's a major corridor, right? So a lot of people are on this. So the implication is the campaign's getting started. Let's let it ramp up a little bit more. Let's try to get our familiarity score a little bit higher. And let's get that overall score to an all-time high. I would love to see that. And I know that's what the communications team wants to do. Number 6, already about 1/3 of the travelers have taken action due to VDOT's public information campaign. So now down through the model, we want people to go to the website and do the sort of behaviors that we're looking for. And so this question is, has any information from VDOT on Route 29 corridor improvements caused you to do any of the following? Visit the website, change your route, attend public meetings, provide input, change your time of travel. I've done none of these. So the inverse of 65 is 35. So we're getting people to do something. The campaign is working. 31% of all Route 29 travelers have taken some sort of action based on information received to date. We like to look for correlations in the work and run regression analysis and try to figure out what impact does communications have. We really want to see that payoff. And so with a few of the questions here, we could cross-tabulate and look at the relationship between questions. And I'm going to show you just a couple of those because we're seeing this information campaign making a difference already. And it gets to these behaviors. So this chart, the way you read this is about familiarity with Route 29 plans all over. And in the dark bar is familiarity. You are familiar. And in the light bar, you're not familiar. And this is where you receive sufficient information, you see a huge lift in familiarity. If you didn't receive sufficient information, then the familiarity didn't go up. You have a lot of people saying, I'm not familiar. And that same sort of thing, when you look at receiving information, receiving some information, or receiving a sufficient amount, those top 3 boxes, what we see is that those who have taken action tend to fall in this group that say they've received sufficient information. So we're just trying to find those sort of patterns. And again, showing awareness of VDOT's information efforts, those people that receive sufficient information, there's a big lift in them saying that they're aware of VDOT's communications campaign. So just trying to find those relationships makes the communications team and VDOT feel more comfortable that the campaign is working, that it's breaking through. So the implication is, campaign seems to be working. We've got to continue to monitor and report the progress through subsequent waves or waves of this tracking research. And again, I think the next time we would do this study, we would probably do even a shorter version than the 8-minute. Just go to those core questions and just dip back into the market and make sure we're seeing those improvements. And then make a decision on how long we have to extend this. So, any questions about that first half? Went pretty fast. Okay? All right, the second part, and I should say out of the 8 minutes, maybe 3 minutes of the survey, we went into name testing. And this was really related to placemaking. So placemaking starts with the name, right? You got to know where you are. And so we sort of tested our way into this and looking at people who are familiar with the Rio Road intersection in Route 29. We felt like if we're going to talk about specific names and the specific quadrants that make up that interchange, we got to make sure we're talking to people that really know about that interchange. So we went to that screener question of familiarity, and we said, you've got to be familiar with this interchange if you're going to be in this section of the research, right? And we opened it up a little bit. Instead of just saying the top 2 boxes, we said, you've got to give a 3, 4, or 5 if you're going to answer questions about naming. And we were so surprised when we saw the data, we went, oh my God, 95% qualified. So basically everybody that was in the survey qualified to keep going through the last 3 minutes. The second thing we learned is that several names are commonly used for the Rio Road Route 29 intersection. The word Rio was most included by far in all these names. So here it's called a wordle. The most oftentimes that the word is used, the larger the word. So surprise, surprise, Rio was the name that people use most often. And we quantified this, and this is what it looks like. This is sort of doing an aided list. Which of the following names have you used or heard to refer to the general geographic area of Route 29 and Rio Road intersection? And look at all the Rio Road area, Albemarle Square, Fashion Square, the top 3 mentions, but then all the other ones with Rio that got votes as well. So that's why Rio came up so big in that world. Number 3, respondents identify the Rio Road Route 29 intersection 4 quadrants as corners. We were trying to think of the possible components of a naming architecture. And we got into a healthy debate about, is it quadrants, is it corners, is it something else? Because we're thinking about 4 corners that make up the whole interchange or the intersection. And so we sort of tested those. This is an aided list, so the respondent read these by the telephone interviewer, and we said, now think of the 4 immediate geographic corners that make up the Route 29 and Rio Road intersection. Northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast. Do you think of these 4 locations as corners, centers, squares, districts, something else? And corners by far was the most popular answer.
And John,
yes,
I want to make sure I understand this correctly, though. With that aided question, they're not always read in the same.
They are rotated.
Yeah, they're rotated.
To get rid of
So
order bias.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I interrupt here?
Okay, yes.
When we discussed it here, 2 words came up that I don't see them, which are areas and zones.
Okay.
Just
I would, let's make a note of that, and I would say before you do anything, you should do a little more research on this topic.
Well,
the
reason for us is that it's not the immediate corner. It is 500 feet or so in each direction along those corners. Kind of.
Good.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
And then I want to share with you in a few minutes that maybe you should be thinking, and this is not from this study, but from the work we do as a research company, maybe it should be thought of more as that geographic zone than the immediate corner.
Exactly. That's the point I wanted to make.
For place. Good. Okay. Well, these are the ones we tested, and corners seem to resonate the most. Number 4, when defining the quadrants or corners that make up Rio Road Route 29 intersection, names including Fashion Square and Albemarle Square resonated the most as suggested identifiers. Okay. Now, in designing this, it's a little bit of art and science on these kind of questions, name testing, because a lot of people can look at questions and go, I don't even know why you're asking these, right? So what we felt like with this particular first time out in exploring this topic, and not knowing how many people are going to be familiar with this area, we said we're going to define each corner and go with an aided name for each corner right off. And so that's how we designed this. We defined Fashion Square located in the southeast section or corner of this intersection. A possible name for this corner is Fashion Square because this is the dominant entity sort of in that area. And the same for each one of these. I won't read these, but we tried to say what is the quickest way to describe what we're doing and what's there to see if people identify with that. And so we led with an aided name. And we wanted to explore, does this name and description identify this corner? Is it an appropriate name? Would you select this name? And this is what we found out. In the southeast section, Fashion Square, in terms of respondents identifying with it, yeah. In the northeast section, identifying with Albemarle Square, yeah. But here in northwest and southwest, Colonial Square and Progress Square, not so much. Not so much. but the other two seem to be really aligned with kind of where people are. Then this is the appropriate name for the corners. And looking at the southeast, northeast, you see this go again. Most respondents believe Fashion Square and Albemarle Square are appropriate names for the corners. And then likely to select the same thing we saw over and over again. So these descriptions that I showed 3 slides ago really made sense in these sort of lead names. But then we said, okay, now top of mind, now that you understand what we're talking about and you understand these corners, what is your name? What would you name it? And so we did this sort of top of mind naming recommendation. And respondents familiar with the Rio Road intersection, which was just about everybody, offered many suggestions for each of the corners, but the names containing Rio were suggested the most. They couldn't help themselves. Rio just kept coming up. Rio coming up. But here you see some of those other names. And here we're looking at, give us your name for that southeast corner. And you see this wordle, the bigger the word, the more times it was mentioned, either separately or together. And this is how it broke down. Variations of Rio, 15%. And here's some sampling of what people said for the southeast corner. Rio Road, Rio Bypass, Route 29. And then here's some other names, suggested names. And then the northeast corner, a lot of consistency, so a lot of names are the same size and are big. And this is how it broke down. Variations of Rio, Albemarle related, SunTrust Bank related, generic. And you see those Rio related the way they came down. And then the northwest corner. And here you had Rio being the #1 word offered, a few other ones repeated a lot. And this is how this broke down. The northwest corner, Rio Hill, variations of Rio. And we can give you the whole list that people came up with, but it was really those variations. And then the southwest corner. Looks like library was the largest word, most often mentioned, square, corner, Hardee's. And this is how that broke down. And again, a lot of variations of Rio. The need for a name, and I think you conclude that it's tabula rasa. I mean, there's a lot of different names, directions this could take, and that's why it really needs a lot of thought and research. Rarely will you do a study like this and just one name will dominate. Everybody will say, oh, I've already figured it out, and total agreement in the market. So when we looked at understanding the intersection overall, the names for the 4 corners of the intersection specifically is not overly apparent. To people familiar with the intersection. The overall idea to name this thing, and let me tell you how we got to this. Question 16, VDOT is exploring potential names for the immediate 4 geographic corners that make up Route 29 and Rio Road intersection. Having names for each of the 4 geographic corners of this intersection may make future communication and road signs easier to understand. How useful do you believe it will be to have names for each of these areas? So 28% clearly, yeah, this would be useful. About 2 out of 10 on the fence, but then 47% saying, I don't think so. I don't understand this. Now that shouldn't discourage you and say, forget this. It doesn't make sense. It's just people don't know. Whenever you do new product research, people don't know what they want. People don't know what they need really in the future. You just got to line up good thinking and research to really anticipate where they are. And this is also, what name would you recommend for this location? The southwest corner, 28% said, no name needed. 15% said, no name needed, no name needed, no name needed. So when you look at those two together, if you're going to come out with a new name, you're going to have to explain why. And you're going to have to make sure that you include a lot of people in the process. So the implication is just that. Most of the respondents are familiar with the Rio Road intersection. It doesn't have one overarching name. If you're going to define it and name this intersection, consider including the word Rio for the naming architecture. And of the words that we tested, corner had some appeal. So consider those for the various, corner for the various. So, this is just a first cut, very, very preliminary. Something if we were to go from here and go into focus groups and involve people from those different areas, we would want to test things like this, example names, and get people to react. And more importantly, in that sort of qualitative work, get people to explain why. We didn't really get to why in a lot of this. This was just sort of first reaction, because it was just 3 minutes of the 8 minutes. Okay, any questions on the naming?
So I mean, it seems to me, John, from what you're presenting, that the east side of 29 Fashion Square, Avon Square, even though I saw one person mention lobster.
Right. That certainly looks,
So there's a lot of, seems to be, based on the results of the surveys of the 400 people.
right,
Some
lot of
a lot
agreement.
of recognition or definition on the east side.
Yes,
A little more, less on
Right.
on the west.
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, if I can make a comment. The first three are consistent with major shopping areas on 29 directly. The southwest is where all of a sudden the definition is no longer on 29, it's on the cross street, it's on Ryan Road. And that is kind of creates a little inconsistency there.
You know, we knew we were doing this study, this benchmark, and we said, why don't we just piggyback on this and add a couple of minutes and.
Oh, there's no question.
But I agree, I mean, we would design a whole study just for this topic and really try to involve people and really try to get them something to look at, to think about, not just a phone interview, show them maps, visuals and all of that, and then give them options to pick from and get to why do you want that over this, and it's very, where people live and where they travel, they get a sense of ownership of that, and so, renaming something or giving something a name is something you have to be very thoughtful with and very considered, and you've got to include many people in the process. So you've got to, take this research and go, wow, there's some promise here, and then go and get enough people in the process to really do it right, qualitatively, and get people to represent all different groups and even residents and businesses in those corners that are going to get named potentially. And then from there, then open it up even broader and get people to weigh in. So you can say this was really a publicly driven process.
Well, that's why some of us thought about naming it area or zone rather than just corner.
Yeah, and I think that's fair game.
And when I first started out playing with this, I just called them northeast quadrant, southeast quadrant, and my wife said, a lot of people don't know what a quadrant is.
Right.
So.
And that's where we were back at home in designing these questions. But I think that if you guys have time, I'll take you through our research that we're doing about placemaking, because I think you have an opportunity to have even a bigger impact than just a geographical reference.
Aren't you?
So
I'm interested, but are you all interested in seeing a little bit more of what occurs?
Sure.
15 minutes?
Yeah. Since we struggled with this on our own, now that we have an expert,
Karen
we may as well.
Just an observation, just a very general observation about, like you pointed out, it's 3 minutes or whatever, and the visual. Just overall, even though I know that it said that, the majority were aware of these projects and whatnot, and there's a lot of visuals that have now been placed on the VDOT website, I still don't feel confident that the general majority of people can visualize the entire landscape of that intersection is going to be vastly different than what it is currently, and that they don't think now they know where to go. They know where things are, but that may change and what that really is going to look like and why that's important to name it.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that about, we didn't go very deep in this survey. Most of the surveys we do are 20 minutes long and longer for transportation because people really want to weigh in, but there's a cost factor.
Right.
And so the 400 interviews was just enough to be statistically reliable and projectable and find out where we are. We did not probe about each part of the Route 29 Solutions projects. We didn't go into each one or what people thought about each one. This was just, overall, do you have enough information? Overall, do you know what's going on? But great point. Okay, placemaking. We do a lot, and I'm also going to say, again, because I told you this before, just clear, you're not betting the ranch on that research on naming. This is just to tell you that we put our toe in the water, and I feel comfortable that there's some promise in naming. You just have to go and spend more time doing it.
John, I want to share with them too what you and I talked about. I wanted to see this with you all for the first time because I want it to be independent. The first part of this presentation, that is VDOT's research, we are going to put up on the website.
Right.
So we'll have it there. this is SIR's research and belongs to John, and I really appreciate you sharing it with us, John, a lot. But the first piece, what we've seen up to now, I'm going to make sure we get up on the website as well, so we'll capture that. So
Great.
thank you, John.
Okay, so placemaking. When you think about transportation, there's no question it provides for the efficient movement of people and goods. That's what it always has done. But we see an evolving role in transportation attracting and supporting the future workforce, and that transportation being more and more important in doing this for every community, every locale, as well as the state. Transportation infrastructure and mobility are part of creating a desirable place, and place is becoming more and more important. So I'm really going to focus on this idea of placemaking, and why it's becoming important is because of this, because of the age shift. There is a fundamental demographic trend that's irreversible. It is happening. It is a fait accompli. You can bet on this trend, and it's really America getting a lot older. Ever since the dawn of time, you've had, or ever since the dawn of man, you've had a lot more younger people alive than older people. And it's always been depicted this way in a population pyramid. A lot of youth, people make it to mid-age, very few get to old age. Well, that's fundamentally changing. So here's the population pyramid, men on the left, women on the right, and here are boomers, and everybody knows about boomers. You hear about being the pig and the python, right? There were so many baby boomers right after World War II being born. So here they are in 1960, and watch as they go through their age, this population pyramid shifting to a population rectangle, because the subsequent generations, the birth rate fell precipitously from 4 kids per household, per mom, down to 2. And that's where we are today. So what we have here is this population pyramid becoming a population rectangle by 2030. And it's already taking place, but it's really going to have profound implications. It's going to mean there's going to be a coming battle for workers all across America. And I think in Virginia. Let me put it into real high relief with some demographic data from the U.S. Census. This is looking at the workforce in 2012, 154 million people, projected in just 10 years in 2022 to go to 163 million. But where is this growth coming from? Well, here's the sweet spot, the 25 to 54 segment. It's almost flat. It's only going to grow by just 2%, right? Well, where's the growth going to come from? Well, not the young people. There are not going to be as many of them, relatively fewer. So the 16 to 24 group, going from 21 million to 18 million, a decline of 13%. And companies like to hire young people because of the creativity and the energy they bring. Well, who's really growing? It's the older group, the 55 plus, going from 32 million to 41 million, almost a 30% growth. So there's no question employers are going to have older people working, and they're going to fight for the fewer younger people. And that is the product, just one of the implications of the age shift. So people are already starting to write about this, experts, about this coming battle for workers, for younger workers. And we know it because we get hired by cities to come and talk to their business leaders about this phenomenon. And cities now are getting into trying to figure out, how do I become a hot spot for young people? And so books have been written about this, including our own. The word is getting out, and more people realize we've got to attract the right workforce. We've got to be an attractive place more than any other state. And so it means becoming a great, attractive place for older workers, and I want to say the right kind of older workers, the one that wants to keep on working, right? And you've got to be a great place for younger workers. You've got to be a young workforce hub. You've got to be known as a hot spot, because hubs sort of beget hubs. Think about Charlotte when it got Piedmont Airlines, right, which ended up being U.S. Air, and then the rest was history. So think about transportation playing an increasing role in attracting the future workforce. And I'm going to explain why by way of a generational lens. And this is what my firm studies a lot, understanding what difference generations make in the marketplace and how they're wired differently. We have something called Generations Matter, and we work for people like NASA and Google and others that hire us to help them figure out their multi-generational workforce, how to help them get along. So boomers, and everybody in the room, I'm looking around, I see a lot of fellow boomers in the room, but think about boomers and how they're wired and the defining events that shaped them during their wonder years when they were coming of age. And really all of these things in history conspired to create in boomers this sense of personal gratification, a sense of entitlement, control, reinvented the 60-hour work week. No to the status quo. We're change agents. We're driven, we're transformational, and we're self-centered. So I could go on and talk about this, but in a nutshell, that's who we are, and we're different than other generations. So now what we're finding is that boomers actually are the best entrepreneurs and are having a greater success rate in starting companies. They're the hottest entrepreneurial group. They're taking more risks, starting more businesses than the young people that are on the cover of all the magazines, like Entrepreneurial and Inc. and all of those. It's really boomers that are leading the way. And they've got a nest egg to invest, and they also have an orientation of having worked 20, 30 years. So they're really quite good at being entrepreneurs. So when you think about the future, and you think about where boomers are headed, right now, 1 in 4 drivers are over the age of 65. 1 in 4. Well, in the future, it's going to be, I mean, it's 1 in 7. It's going to go to 1 in 4 in the future. We're going to go from 1 in 7 to 1 in 4. So when you're going home tonight, look around and count the people over 65. It's 1 in 7. And then you go to 2030, it's 1 in 4. And so what's going to happen is that we're going to have to take care of this situation. Because as you get older, some things change. And this is Barbie and where she is. But what also changes is that we don't hear as well, we don't see as well, and it does get a little more confusing. It's already getting that way for me. I don't like to admit that to my friends at VDOT, but it's a little more complicated. So the idea of putting LED lights on stop signs, which has been tested actually in this research facility and put in different places in Virginia, putting larger decals on the road, this is where you are, right? Very helpful. And Google and driverless cars makes perfect sense, right? And the whole idea of Uber and what they're bringing to the market. So we're going to still be mobile. We still realize we have a second half of life to live. A lot of us want to be entrepreneurs, and we want those kind of people in our cities. You see, we're going to need them, right? And we don't want the ones that really want to keep working and be entrepreneurs to go somewhere else. We want them to stay here and come here. So what do they want? And all of our research with boomers, and most of them are in the suburbs now, they're saying, I want more of a car-light life. I'd like to have a place that we call a 15-minute walkable community. I want to be able to get around and do everything. I still want to have a car, but I don't need 4 cars. And I don't need the 4,000 square foot house. I need to have this more walkable community. And when I say that, I don't mean that boomers are going to flock to downtowns. Okay? What they're going to flock to are activity centers. And I'm already seeing it with my friends in Richmond. Just a place where you can get entertainment, go to the movies, go to the grocery store, get everything you need in that walkable community. And so we're seeing those really gain traction. In Richmond, we've got about 14 of these sort of activity centers. And I know in Charlottesville, you guys have a number of activity centers too. And that's what we're calling a place, making those places great. All right, millennials at the other end of the spectrum. We're not going to have as many younger people in the future, relatively fewer number. So what were the defining events that were happening when millennials were coming of age? And you still have it happening now, because half the millennials are still in high school and middle school. But those that are out, we've been studying them for the last 10 years and seeing all these things in our society. School violence, the World Trade Center attacks, the Gulf Wars, and wow, it just seemed so dark and negative out there. We have been so surprised at how positive millennials are. And through our research, what we've discovered is that these guys are incredibly confident. They're civic duty oriented, because now the schools don't give you a report card until to have your credits done. You can't, if you haven't done your volunteer service, you don't get your report card handed to you. They hold it back. I know because my kids never did theirs on time. Hyper-connected, multitasking on steroids, fearless, beyond their talents. They're fearless. So all of this, if you have to put them into a one little sort of definition, we would say they're ambitious, they're purposeful, and they're codependent. Now that's a loaded word, but I'm going to explain why. And there's 3 different words in what boomers are, right? Big time difference. But in addition to all of these things that are external events in history, what has also shaped them more than any other generation are 2 internal forces. And that's how they were raised and how they're wired, literally wired. So I'm going to go through the first one first. How they were raised, they were born to us boomers, transformative parents said, oh, we're going to reinvent parenting. We're going to do it right, right? what to, those books we used to get, what to expect when expecting, and how to raise a teenager and all that. So we immediately, when they came home, put cameras on the cribs. We immediately told them this word right up, you're special, right? And really got their confidence going, their egos going. We talked to them constantly. We helicopter parent them. 82% of parents talk to millennials, or millennials talk to their parents yesterday. I said talk because it's text or talk, right? The big thing in Richmond is to pack the car up and come spend so much time with students that we send off to UVA. I can't believe my friends that just do this. Like, I think students should go to college, right? But that's a whole other story. So what we've done is we've raised all-stars. We've raised these folks that really want to make a difference. And not only do they want to work for companies where they feel like they can make a difference, but they want to be in communities where they can make a difference. The second thing that has happened that's internal more than external is how they're wired. So everybody has seen millennials before. These millennials are actually texting each other, right? They are texting constantly. And I didn't understand this concept from all the studies we did until I took my daughter fishing. Her name's Becca. And she was a senior in high school, and I woke her up one morning and said, we're going to go shad fishing, because the shad are running like they are now on the fall line in Richmond. And it was 5 a.m. I took her out there, nobody else out there. We both put our lines in. I caught a fish, she caught a fish. We did it a second time, and she said, Dad, take a picture of me. So I did that, and then she just sat down and played with her phone the rest of the morning. I went on and I caught 90 fish because I kept calling them out to her. Number 38, pick your rod up. Number 40. It was one of the best fishing days ever in my life. It was really amazing. But on the way home, I said, all right, Becca, you're probably going to get a demerit. That's okay. I'll sign it. It was a great day, but why did you stop fishing? She said, you don't get it, Dad. I said, yeah, I don't. Help me. Well, you were fishing and you caught 90 fish, but I was fishing too. I was fishing with 90 of my friends. And I just went, oh my gosh, duh, I get it. As a boomer, I go through life and experiences living the experience. I live the moment. I will tell people later I caught 90 fish, you bet I will. But not then, I'm not giving up that. But millennials go through life sharing the experience because of that technology. So you go to the next football game and look around, half the millennials are on their phone and it's the big play of the game. But they gotta share it because that's in their DNA. It's not right or wrong, it's just what it is. So we've created this new sense of self called the collective self. That's what millennials are, the collective self. So just remember that, think about them. Think about boomers as being really self-centered. These guys are really about the collective self. And with that first wiring from their parents, they feel like they, and I mean they as in like socialistic group, going through time together, feel like they've been groomed to create a better future. It's not about the individual, it's about the group. So they're ushering in this new expression of community, and they really want to transform the communities that they're part of. They want to live in something that has an urban feeling to it, right? Not necessarily just downtown, but those activity centers. And I have to keep mentioning that because it's not all about the downtowns. But it's about a new hub, a new shared place, in a system that feels like it's a place. They don't care about their apartments. These apartments are all the rage in big cities. They're smaller than a 40-foot trailer, right? But they don't need that. What they really want are these public places and spaces. They really want to feel like they can hang and they can be with their group and they can go through their time together all over the place. This is the Denver Union Station, which is an old train station that's been repurposed, a big development, multimodal center. But you go inside and it's got all these games and local hot retailers. It really feels like a hangout place, a third place. They're all about sharing. This is, if you have an apartment and you leave it for the weekend, you just put it up on Airbnb and let people come in, total strangers. My kids do this, I can't believe it. And then their food trucks have really taken off because sharing is caring, and that's just how they can spend time together. And if you happen to have a car as a millennial, put that up on the website and let people rent it. But what we're seeing is Gen Ys, who are millennials, it's one and the same term, they're much less car-centric. We're not seeing them get their driver's license. We're working with DMV right now on a strategic plan, and they're just saying, wow, look what it was like in '78. Half of the 16-year-olds got their license. Today, just a third. By the time you're 18, 86% back in '78 had their license. Today, it's less than 7 in 10. And even buying new cars, this younger group is not doing that. I tried to give my car, a car to my son when he graduated from high school 3 years ago. on time, on budget, almost had a 4.0, and he said, no, I don't want a car. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, I don't need it, but maybe you can give me a camera. I was like, wow, what a smart guy. I'm going to get him a camera. That makes a lot of sense. Now they're sharing bikes, they're sharing cars. It's just the way they are. They really are in more of the sharing. And so Uber makes perfect sense for how they're going to get around. They don't define themselves by the car like we did. And in our focus groups, we try to get to why, and what we hear is that this choice has almost nothing to do with being anti-car. It's about all the other things a non-car life or a car-light life represents. Helps me be more environmentally conscious, socially aware, and local. These guys really want to build something new, and they really want a place. And it's the same sort of idea when you peel the onion back that boomers want. They want this sense of place. They want high-quality transportation to be able to get around and to move around. And so we're seeing this come up more and more in the studies we do in our placemaking research. This is looking at millennials in different cities and what they want. And they want the basics. It's got to be safe. You've got to have a variety of employment options. You've got to have quality and affordable housing options. But all these cultural things they want. They really want bikeability and walkability and public transportation and embracing small business, urban living, all these things. So they too want this car-light life. They really want this sense of place where they can be. And they are change agents, just like boomers are. And so when you put these two things together, these two extremes, we need more boomers, especially the entrepreneurs. We're going to need our fair share or greater of the younger people in the future. And the successive generation will look more like millennials than anybody else. So what we think is this is the recipe that transportation is more than, yes, it's important to build roads and keep them up, but it's also about building roads and at the same time making sure we're sensitive to creating place. And that's what was so cool when Philip said, hey, could we study this in this survey? Could we tip our toe in the water and think about, is there a way to think about naming as part of this whole project? And I was saying that's so smart, that's so consistent with what we're hearing. We're seeing study after study come out about this, building place, investing in place. We're seeing cities already get an early advantage like Austin and Denver and Portland in terms of being millennial hotspots. And we're seeing plans on specifically designed plans to attract more millennials to areas. Here's Denver's plan. Oklahoma just came out with their plan. And really now CEOs are saying it's making a difference when they think about what they're doing and moving their company. So we have the pleasure of working and going around the country and talking a lot about this because it's the kind of research we do. But again, it just lines up perfectly with your initial insight to say, why don't we think about, could we leave this area better off with a sense of place more than it has now? And I thought that was really smart. So you're right on it already, and I just applaud your effort for that. So back to the key takeaways for what we did today, which is really why I was here. The majority of travelers are aware and familiar with the project. The information is starting to appear to working, it's starting to get some traction. Building that familiarity and with the overall plans and with taking specific actions is where we need to go now. Respondents are familiar with Rio Road. Intersection doesn't have one overarching name. You should consider including the word Rio, but definitely study this more. And if you're going to think about naming the quadrants, you've got an early lead with Fashion Square and Albemarle Square, but Colonial Square and Progress Square not so much. And I think we should continue to study what sort of nomenclature you use with that. So that's my story.
John, could you back it up to the thing that said transportation, infrastructure, mobility? That one, back. There. John, thank you so much. Thanks so much. You know, John mentioned transportation, infrastructure, mobility. We still have to keep up roads. And John hasn't been here for all our meetings, but certainly there's a dichotomy of opinion among the group about what's the best way to do that. And we've sort of moved past that. But I'm going to say to you exactly what I said to John on the phone when I called him after your suggestion. I said, this is a chance to do something more than build a road. that this is a chance to do something more. And whether it's VDOT's place to do it, or the county's place to do it, or how it gets done, speaking for myself, I think the opportunity to do something with place naming here is worth somebody's time putting into it, whether it's a corner or a zone or an area or a quadrant, and even the results of the research of, like you said, so, well, 28% of people said, well, maybe having a name, not so important. I don't think that's the important results of the research. I think there's an opportunity here that it's something that's worth us spending a little bit more time on, and then how it wants to get picked up or carried forward, I don't know. But it just boom. Okay, people know Fashion Square. Boom, people know Albemarle Square. Maybe the other side, or as Henry said, the northwest quadrant, the Rio Hills. Then you move into the southwest, and it's not so apparent. But it could be.
Best interest to have this names on the same par as the corner. Yeah. And to tie into what Karen said, there is no question that a trip through the Rio intersection in the future is going to be different than it is today. Well, if it's going to be different than it is today, from a mobility and transportation point of view, I've got a pretty good handle on that for me. But from a place point of view, it's an opportunity to almost create, it seems to me, a small local system that maybe can become a sensitive place for others. Thank you again, and thanks for letting us. The timing was perfect. John, I know, had to go back and redesign his survey, and I just appreciate you giving us 3 minutes out of the 8 to bring this information to you and spend a little bit of time on whether your reactions to it. We have one more thing I just want to cover before we wrap up, so I am sensitive of the time. Is this something we want to keep on an agenda to bring back when we have more time to talk about, or what's your sense?
One thing I wanted to ask John when we've got the advantage of him being here, do you have any recommendations for next steps in terms of the process? I mean, I know you mentioned a little bit in your presentation to get it out, get more people involved.
I think that it's so sensitive that you want to have a process that ultimately includes more people.
Yeah.
Right? But you need to give them something to really think about and not just open it up, what should we call it? So I think 2 things. You should outline a process that includes more research, whether it's with me or some other firm, but really get some of the immediate stakeholders involved and use the benefit of this research and do some qualitative in each one of those zones or areas and get some of those stakeholders at the table. And it doesn't have to be the fancy focus group kind, but it definitely needs to be qualitative. And then arrive at some sort of naming architecture that makes a lot of sense from all of that research, and then let people weigh in. After you really thought through 2 or 3 really workable solutions, then let people weigh in. The second recommendation is, and Philip alluded to it, I think it's very appropriate that you're talking about this. It shows how strategic this group is, but there are some other people that have responsibilities in placemaking, the city and the planning office of the city, and so I would just make sure they're at the table too. So we
have the MPO, the city, the county.
I think if I could add, just to make sure you're aware of too, we've got kind of the competing forces at the time, but I mean, this is in the county, and Mark, you correct me, but the movement is that an area plan is in the budget and is expected to be approved for July 1st. but we were kind of competing against the clock to come up with something that could be used during the construction phase. You know, the area plan will take into account all of this and is lucky enough to take into account the new infrastructure that's going in. But we were trying to come up with something that we could go ahead and implement during construction that would serve both purposes, temporary, and then work its way into the community involvement, you know, a full-blown area plan.
Yeah, that's a great point, because normally, we're planning on a small area plan specifically for this area. We already have a master plan that includes this whole northern area, northern 29, places 29. That was done, named through community engagement. Normally, the way the county likes to work is to engage the community and make sure we've got a name that resonates with our constituents. So that's the normal process we use. As far as the desirable places, I'd just say that's been our comp plan for 15 years. We've had neighborhood model and saying that's what we want to do is create desirable places.
But I think you can use, you can come up with this sort of research and a little more and come up with names for the facility in the short term. Just you got to be careful because sometimes they stick.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about. It's a lot to digest. It's a lot to digest. Perhaps we could talk a little bit more and make sure it's cool with Tamara, and maybe get a little more structure to an answer to Morgan's question. You know, what would you suggest next? Then I think there's a lot here for the county to think about. You know, I don't know that it's VDOT's place to name a place, but this has been a good forum to get this discussion on the table, and absent having the discussion and what you brought up, your survey wouldn't have included it. Right. So,
I would just say, from my point, I think it is good to keep this conversation going, even if it is just in a recommendation and advisory kind of capacity, and it keeps the fire burning a little bit. The other part of it, I think that it's important that we continue with the process now is that as this process is winding up, we're talking about it hydraulic in 29. And there's a lot of design. I mean, it's way early there, but at least it can start kind of setting the model for what the city and county is going to have to entertain when they're doing the preliminary work there. I think it'll start to set the table very nicely for that future work.
any other? Brad? Chris?
Yeah, just one thought, and I wonder if you have an opinion, John. There seems to be, I mean, your research leads to the notion of placemaking and a name for the place, which I can wrap my hands around. We've talked about these corners and quadrants and kind of directing people during construction. And it seems to me a little forced to try and create 4 names. And some of the research that you even presented kind of suggests, not really. So would you have any guidance or suggestion about, should we focus on a name, or is the will of the group, or what would you suggest with respect to the 4 names?
Well, it's hard to answer because now that I've learned there's a process underway, and I'm sure you guys are involving stakeholders. So that's I would say you do it that way and don't rush. But I do feel like part of your question, I have a very strong opinion about. You want this area to have an overall name. And right now our research demonstrated it's Rio maybe, Rio something, I mean, you want this area, and you can have a guiding hand in making it stick with all of the communications and all of the different players in this room. If you've got Pantops and you've got the corner, and you want it to roll off the tongue, and then you got Rio, and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. And so I would think that's number 1. And then number 2, with your construction project, is you just have to be careful. whatever you use could end up becoming something.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
there needs to be this coordination
Yeah.
with the responsible parties.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was the idea that came up at one point, that we would have signage that would essentially be the permanent signage already placed during construction, so that people would know how to get there. And some signage would have like a add-on sign with the detour necessary to get to that point, and then eventually, when the project was completed, that detour sign goes down and everybody knows how to get to those places. And
So there's another.
I don't know if you have seen, I drew up some signage.
He hasn't seen. I did not,
Yeah.
other than asking him,
Yeah.
not because you drew it up. No, I.
You wanted to get him fresh.
Yes, yes.
I understand.
So.
But
yeah.
now that he's no longer
Yeah.
fresh,
Yeah.
maybe you wanted.
Well, we may want to keep him fresh though too. We have to think about that.
Now he has been broken. Give him, why don't you give him what we did then, just to play with it?
Yeah.
You know, and say, well, this is whatever, this is fairly good if you do
You know what,
something
there's
different.
another element to think about is that the most intense period of construction is the 103 days in September, in between May and September of 2016.
Right.
Right. Because that's when we want
So-
to have signs up.
Oh, no, I know.
So it's not
Well,
too early.
what I hear is, let's don't stop thinking that we're talking about it today.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing? And
Well,
then there are some
There are
decisions that
essentially
need.
two items. One is an overall name for the area,
Mhm.
like Pantops, like downtown, like the University Corner. And
Mhm.
to me, it occurs that maybe Rio 29 may be the name. Maybe not.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But a name.
Yeah.
And then comes the next issue is what to do with the quadrants with something that resonates. From something where you just call it the blue zone, the red zone, the
Right,
green zone,
right, all the
to
things that-
Right.
something else.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's essentially
Yeah.
what we're working on.
Okay. All right.
Excellent.
So, we'll have some follow-up conversations and keep this going, either to the pleasure or chagrin of others. Probably a little bit of both. John, thanks so much. And as I said, the VDOT part of the survey is, I need to get that from you, and we'll post it on the website as part of the material from today's meeting. The SIR part that you were kind enough to share with us is yours, and we won't infringe on that. John, thank you. Thanks so much, and thanks to all of you all for being willing to engage in this discussion over the last couple of weeks. Because we just got the plans in after we posted the agenda, the plans for Route 29 widening, I just put this under new business to make sure that everybody's aware that the 30% plans for the Route 29 widening project were received March 31st. They were made available to you all and publicly up on the website yesterday. It's route29solutions.org. If you look at that documents tab up front, it will take you to them. We're trying to gather our comments before August, before April the 8th, to fit in with Dave's time frame for the 9-day turnaround back to Lane Pullman. There were some changes from the VDOT concept drawings. These are the same I mentioned to you in the note I pushed out to you all. And Dave, I think maybe we can visit this a little bit. Well, let me get to one point. The majority of the retaining walls have been eliminated. I do not know from X number of feet to this. I just don't know that yet myself. Stormwater management easements have been, the necessity for those have been reduced or eliminated. The median width has been reduced. It was in the concept drawings, It kind of was 16 feet in some places, up to 30 feet in some places, I believe. It's been reduced to 16 feet wherever possible to reduce right-of-way requirements. And Pete asked a question about this day, so I would ask you to speak to it. The shared use path, which is a result of your all's recommendations. Remember, this was going to be a sidewalk. The shared use path is on an independent alignment to reuse existing northbound pavement. I know what that means in my mind, but can you articulate that a bit for the group? Because this path is important to everybody.
Okay. Well, first of all, the word alignment here should specifically identify the vertical line. It runs parallel to the roadway consistently for the duration of the shared use path. The first thing that we need to understand is a shared use path has a different requirement for stopping sight distance than a roadway. Bicycles don't travel at 45 miles per hour. So it's not constrained by the geometric improvements that we're making to the roadway. So what the design builder did is looked at how can I use existing pavement along the northbound lanes? How can I use something that exists today to decrease the amount of work that we have to do to ensure that we meet the schedule? And it was looking at areas where they could use some of that existing pavement, use some of the existing shoulder for that shared use path. So really the design separates the vertical alignment of the roadway, the grade of the roadway, slightly from the path. There will always be the maximum slope between the roadway and the path will be 4-to-1 slope, so 1 foot for every 4 foot vertically versus horizontally. So you don't have some steep drop off between the roadway and the path. And you see this in a lot of existing paths today. It mimics a more natural environment where you don't have this generic path following exactly the roadway. There's a little deviation there. And it minimizes, the objective was to minimize impacts to some of the steep slopes that exist on the east side of Route 29 right now, minimize impacts to wetlands, minimize impacts to streams that all exist on that east side of the road. A lot of people don't see that driving 29 right now, but if you go down there and walk on the bottom of those slopes, you'll see there's a lot of wetlands, there's a lot of streams, there's some cultural resource sites on the east side of the road, specifically down there, polo grounds. So that was the intent. That's what we got from the design builder in their technical proposal. It's shown very similar to the way it was presented to us in that technical proposal.
Let me ask you one question just to make sure this is clear and I have this correctly. While these are variations from the concept drawings that VDOT prepared early on, these are compliant with the latitude in the request for proposals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And honestly, what we're seeing here in these 4 items is the flexibility that we've allotted in the way we crafted the RFP
for the design
to allow some innovation, and we saw these specific items of innovation.
So they're similar to shared paths here in New Parkway?
Yes.
What
Yes.
else are they doing?
So what is the approximate distance between the edge of the roadway and the shared use?
If I remember correctly, I think it's 8 feet. There's an 8 foot separation between the travel lane and the shared use path.
So just to kind of go back to where we started earlier, is the plans are on the website. The roadway plans are a pretty big file, so it's 42, 43 megs. They take a little while to load. The cross sections, which might be of some interest to some of you, are a little smaller file. They're about 12 megs. If you take a peek at it and you would like a reduced set or a full set, just let me know, and Dave and I will make sure they get delivered to you. Mark put in a bid for a half size bid, a request for a half size set.
8 years. Depends where the cherries.
Is the plan still that the shared use path will go up to a certain point, and there'll be a crosswalk?
Yes.
Over the sidewalk on the western side?
Thing goes to North Hollymead, and then it's just graded,
I think it's South Holland.
or South Holly, which, Hollymead.
Right.
And then it's going to still be graded
Yeah.
beyond that.
So we don't have a path to nowhere.
Right. But it'll connect via that crosswalk to the sidewalk on the west side of the road. Okay. All right, wrap up. Mayor, anything? Okay. Morgan? Chip? Henry? Karen?
Just thank you very much for the presentation. It was wonderful. I think that probably the one thing we can all agree on is that we do need a desirable sense of place. And however that is, I think that the idea of an umbrella name, and then possibly because it is directional, that's transportation
Yeah.
issues, that may need some signage or naming where they're headed
Yeah.
would be helpful. But I think we're headed hopefully in the right direction now. And then of course the county, definitely that's going to be a piece of it, but hopefully we can help with some groundwork already laid.
Thank you, Karen. Chris? Brad? Okay. Thanks very much, and we'll see you here April the 16th. April the 16th. Thank you very much.